Welcome to One Horse Town Part 3. This is actually going to be a pretty in-depth type lesson. There's a lot of chords to discuss, some of the basic chords and then some of the enhancements to the chords like suspensions and added notes and things like that. And also, of course, the strum pattern. So I'm going to share the score in a second. And the way I started the score out is I actually listed all the chords so you can actually practice the chords first and go through them one by one. I actually put them in a chord note rhythm, even though you can change the rhythm to like a half note or a whole note and things of that nature. So we'll actually be able to play the chords through and almost in like the chord pair fashion in the videos that I posted on chord pairs. So if you've seen that series and you're familiar with that, the approach is pretty much the same before you go into the chart. So let me just get you into the score now without further ado. If I can get the score here. All right, let's make sure we're sharing our sound here. And let's get out of that scene. Okay, so all right, so here it is. Here's our score, and you can see on top, let me just move myself over here. Okay, so you can see on top here, all the chords are listed. We got our D minor, which starts the tune out. You can see in the listing of chords. I tried to keep everything in order for the most part. So if you want to go through the first couple of chords, D minor to D sus2, you could do that as a pair. That's pretty much a pretty easy chord to play through. And you'll see too in the chart, when we get to this measure, D minor, D sus2, back to D minor. And there's some other little things I'll talk about with the chords as we go through the actual score. All right, so then you got F and F sus2. It's another chord pair you can hang out with. I'm going to go through the chords in just a moment. I just want to kind of run you through the chart first. And the suspensions are sus2. Sometimes you'll see these as add nines, things of that nature. So sus2, usually with suspensions, they resolve upward. In this tune, it doesn't quite do that. Actually, it does in the D minor chord that shows up in the very first measure. So there is resolution to all the suspended chords that you see here. sus2, sus4, in the case of the C chords, which are up in here, C and C sus4. And also later on, this is where you get some like add 11, add 9 kind of language. So this could be considered also a C sus4 as well. So there's a couple of ways to look at some of these chords, and it all comes down to the spelling of the chord. And that's something that we're going to go through now with the chords. So here's our D minor chord, pretty standard fare with D minor. What happens when you do the D sus2, this note here, the F goes away. So you get the sus2, which is an E. E is 2 notes away from D if you count D. Okay, that's where the sus2 comes from. And I'll click on it now once I get out of here. All right, there it is. So you just get rid of the F on the first fret. You get the open string. There's your sus2. And then in the chart, it does resolve to the D minor chord. So I'll play that for you in a sec. Let me just get out of the diagram. Stop the share for a moment. So that'd be like a D, D sus2, back to D. Okay, so that's going to be the first measure of the chart that you get in terms of your chords. Bringing back the score. Okay, so then you got F and F sus2. So let's highlight those chords for a sec. If I can get to it. Here we go. All right, so we got the F chord. The first finger is barring the first fret on this one. So that's going to allow for you to actually take this note, the A note, and get it to a G, which is going to be the very next chord, the F sus2. So let's go to that. And there it is. Okay, open G. And then you go back to the regular F chord in that measure, which is actually over here. We'll just get rid of this. So that's your second measure in the verse, F sus2, F. All right, so you got the F, F sus2, F. And then you go to C next, which I'm going to get out of this. And let's go to the C chord. Standard C chord, okay? When you get the other chord, the sus4, what happens is the E goes to an F. So you're going to actually add in your pinky. And you could take away that finger or leave it down, because when you go back to the C chord, you want to have that finger prepared and ready to go. So that's what happens in measure 3 of the verse. We get the C, C sus2, and then the C again after that. So that's going to be the deal with that. The C add 11 comes later, so the F isn't in this particular measure. It does come later on. So that's the deal there. And there's some treatment to that chord that we'll discover in just a minute when I play through the chart for you. Okay. All right. So now we're on to measure 4 of the verse. Right in there, all G. It's pretty nice. So it's a 4 measure phrase, measures 1, 2, 3, and 4. of the verse section, and then you get another 4-bar phrase on this page, okay? And then the whole thing's going to repeat. So that's the part we're going to take you through today. Let's go to the C measure. Before actually we do that, let's check out the G chord here. Again, this is a pretty popular way of playing the G chord. They use it in the song, so you'll see it right there. G, B, and D for the G chord. Nothing's really going on that's fancy with the chord. So, all right, there you have it. So that takes you through the first 4 bars, and in the next 4 bars we get the same as measure 1, same exact kind of deal with that. Same thing, measure 2 is over here at measure 5 of the verse, and then let's actually get a highlighted part here. C. Now this is the difference between this measure and this measure. Slightly different situation with the chords here, okay? And again, we're going to hear this in a second. And we keep the C chord for the 8th measure of the verse section, okay? So, and then the whole thing repeats for the most part. All right, so that's the amount we're going to go through today with that. Some of the other chords, like some of the voicings of the chords, I'll talk to you about. In particular with C, this one right here. We're adding a G on top. Regular C chord, but we're doubling the G's. We have an open G here, and then we have a high G that's played in the chord in the song. So if you were to just play a regular C chord in the song, you could do that. They happen to use that voicing. There's more than one guitar in the song. So that gives you a nice little high, so C chord sound. Okay, I'm going to go through the chords individually in a second, playing wise, okay? Then we'll hear the chart. Okay, so that's where you get that chord just played is going to be right in here. This one here. Get rid of that, sorry, excuse me. This is the guy here, so when you get to this chord, that's the one you hear at the very last part of the tune, right in here. This is where you get that chord. Oh, it's not, let me do it. So that chord is right in here, okay? So that's the situation with that. And then you see some other guys here, other ways of playing. So we have a C sus2 chord, which is very nice too, so it's a good one. This is a part of the tune later on that goes, which I'm going to kind of blow out the chart for a second, go to the big screen so you can see some of these other chords, okay? All right, so that's C sus2. That's another one you need to know for this one. The C add 11 is another one, which is almost basically like C sus4. It's really what it is. 11 and 4 are the same note. It's an F. And again, when I do the music theory types of guitar posts that I have planned for this channel, we'll talk about how that works out in the key of C. In fact, this tune mostly is in the key of C major, okay? So there's a lot of C chord in the tune. So there is the 11 part of the C at 11. Again, this could be considered C sus4 as well. So there's some what they call chord synonyms, 2 ways you can name the chord, and it would contain the same notes. Just depends on the function of the chord, what it's doing. C add 9, that's pretty standard fare in this measure after the C add 11. So that one, the way that chord's voiced is right here. That's the one I just was checking out before, right? So you just get a regular C chord. The add 9 is the D string, which is this guy right in here. C add 9. So usually it's over the octave. So again, you can consider these things different things. Usually with an add 9 chord, the D is in this location on the B string. It's actually past the octave. Okay, so again, the spelling of the chords is up for debate, pretty much. You know, this could be a C add 2. I mean, there's different ways you can think of the voicing of the chord. So now let me just blow out of the screen for a sec. Let me get out of the stop share. Okay. So we have the regular D chord, as I played before, the D sus2, right? You have the F chord, this part here. The first finger on the side of the finger, right on the outside edge, is where you're going to have the strings 2 and 1. To get that type of bar technique, you're going to angle your elbow into your side, which turns the finger this way. If you can see in the bottom part of the screen. Rather than being flat, which is what a lot of people do, when you move your elbow into your side like this, it actually changes the hand. You can see how my hand is rotating this way. So as I look down at my hand, I can see the palm of my hand when I'm looking down at my hand. When I turn, the wrist actually just turns automatically just by virtue of the elbow coming in. That's the key to some of these little small bars and also larger bar chords like the big F chord. So this one only uses a small amount of that. You know, so you have your outside edge of your finger grabbing those top two strings. And then you just leave the bar there. These two guys, hello, playing the F and the A. So you have a lifting off of the middle finger in the F chord. Okay? So that's your treatment on the F chord. And then the C chord, the C sus4. Really nice sounding chord. And then the G chord, and D chord. Lots of really nice treatments of those chords that really makes the song sound pretty fancy. All right, so really nice stuff. Creates some other melodic interest in the tune. So, all right, so let me play through the chart. I'll let the audio do a lot of the talking here, so you can. Oh, before I even played the audio, the strum pattern. We didn't discuss that yet. We have ties in here. So the idea of a tie is that we have two sounds, or in this case, one sound that's tied across the beat. So the end of 2 in this case down to beat 3. So you'll see there's nothing here. If you're looking at the notes and underneath in the intabulation, there's nothing there. So normally there'll be a down strum in here, but with ties we have suspension, not suspension so to speak, but we have sustain of the notes. So you play on the end of 2, but on beat 3 you're not playing anything. The chord just rings over into beat 3. And then we play again here on an up strum, down and up. Now this part, the very last part of beat 4, the end of 4, there's actually open strings here. Okay, so between D minor and F, we're going to lift off on the end of 4 and land on beat 1 with a brand new chord. Okay, you're going to see this here, just like in measure 1 over here, which is technically it's like measure 6, I think it's written in as. So measure 1 of the verse. These are just the chord collections that I wrote out. We'll get to that in a moment. You're going to hear all this stuff. That's what I was alluding to before with practicing things in pairs. We actually have an area where we can actually play on the beat eventually and do all the chord changes one after the other. We'll discuss that in a moment, but I want to just get that strum pattern out of the way first. Excuse me. So the end of 4 here, 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 and here, we're lifting off. You can see all open strings on the up strum, okay? And lifting off the chord and landing in the next measure is key to getting smooth changes in the tune, okay? So the tie is a function that's brand new. We haven't talked about it before, but that's how it functions. It adds sustain to the chord, okay? Same thing on the F chord, on beat 2 into beat 3, same exact deal. And you see the up, and then you have another up after that, just like you did up back over here. Where's my mouse? There we go, right there and there. So the right hand pattern is consistent throughout, okay? The only time it's going to change, it's going to be pretty much right off the bat, all the way through, the same exact thing, okay? Here is where you have not lifting off at all in terms of the chord, but we have a chord change, but it's still all about C, so there's no need to lift anything. In fact, you're just going to be adding fingers in, taking fingers away between the C add 9 and the C chord, taking away the E note of the C chord in favor of D, and then adding in an E over here. Again, this might be sounding like crazy lingo that I'm talking about here, but that's how it functions. Excuse me. So you're not going to do anything with open strings here, you know, so that's the little changeover. Then we get the lift off with open strings here to get back to the D minor chord. Okay, so let's hear this thing and see what it sounds like, and you get an idea of what's going to be going on with the tune. So it's going to sound kind of odd hearing everything played as quarter notes and then this whole measure of rest right here and then launching into the chart. May sound a little strange, but again, this is an area, the first 4 bars here in the verse before you get to measure 5, which is a sort of lead in into your actual part for the verse. Practice section over here, you can spend as much time as you want on these bits. Each measure offers something really good to you. So the D minor to the F chords, pairs of chords there. Here is an exception. We have a G going to a D minor, but C sus4 could be considered a chord pair. Then, of course, G and D minor. D sus2 F, another chord pair you can play with. F sus2 C you can play with, or F to F sus2. pairing things up is a great way to do things in any given tune, especially when it's written out this way. Okay. All right, so there's a practice section in here. Let's hear what that sounds like. Sounds very strange, right? So that's really the idea. It's just an area of reference to practice, right? Now, if we go into the next part, here's our countdown measure. So let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, so it's going to change in part 4 just a little bit. Okay, this measure right in here is really interesting. So let me just scroll back to here if I can. Oh, nope. Right in here. Let's go right to here. This is a really interesting measure. Okay, you got a hammer-on in here. That's one thing that's in the tune. That's a little bit of a left-hand technique to throw in. So really cool stuff there. So there's some other things to consider as well. So this one's a little more involved once you get into the verse chord. And again, you could do a D minor for the whole measure. If you can't do the suspensions and all this other stuff that's in the chart, you can just go straight on with D minor for the whole measure, keeping your strum pattern down, down, up, down, up, F, down, up, down, up, C chord, down, up, down, up, G, down, up, down, up, D minor, down, up, down, up, F, down, up, down, up, C, down, up, down, up, C, down, up, down, up. So if you did that, that will work too, just fine. So I'll take you out of the screen here so you can see it. All right, so if I just did straight on chords, it would work just fine too. F chord, then the C chord, and G, back to D minor, F chord, C chord, okay, so that's the idea with that. So there's a couple different ways you can run the chord through. So you have those straight on chords, or you can go with Okay, so there's different ways you can approach all these chords in this tune. So that's pretty much the chart for the most part. Okay, I'm going to bump the tempo up a little bit, and you get to hear it at a faster speed. Okay, so let's share that again. I'm going to move it to, let's see, let's go to 80. Select 80. Okay, all right, let's see what that sounds like. The tempo, I think, is around 80. Let's go with the actual measure here. Let's try this part. There it is. So, 2. Oh, you know what? Didn't go to the tempo. Let's go try that again. Let's go 80. Okay. All right. Let's hear it again. Oh, what's up with that? That's crazy. Okay. All right. Here it is. A little faster. Or we can go to even a faster speed. Let's hear it at 119. Let's try that. Okay, there it is. Okay, so let's hear it at that speed. Okay, it's not that fast. It's actually slower than that. But you can hear how it starts to sound a bit more like the tune when you get to the faster speeds. Again, keeping it slow. We don't want to worry about doing anything on the fast tip. Okay. Let's get back to, let's take it down to like 80 again. No, not 118, excuse me. All right, let's go to 80. Okay. So that's the idea with that particular part of the tune. Okay, so that's the story with the particular part of the song. Part 3, in this case, nice collection of chords, not too crazy. Again, if these other chords are a real pain, they're really worth learning because they sound really nice, you know. So I would definitely go with these particular chords as you go through. Again, this doesn't involve any capoing, it's in standard tuning. Slow tempo to start from the very beginning, just to get your pairs together, and then start adding in the right hand. Same thing I did in part 2, where you isolate your left hand movements without doing the right hand. Let's get out of the share screen. Okay, working with left hand only, D minor, D sus2, F chord, F sus2, right? C chord, the high G thrown in there. All the chord voicings you see on top of the chart. Definitely hang out with those chords first. Get really comfortable. Just change between the two, left hand only. Then add the right hand in to check the sound. And then you can employ the strum pattern, whatever chord it is. It could just be, you know, right? In the case of that C, add 11, they call it. Or it's called that in the chart. Making sure all the chords ring out. You want to double check everything before you launch into the chart. So pull apart the chart. Go through everything separately, then add things back together, and you'll have a great time with this particular tune. Okay? So any questions, comments about this one, definitely send some comments my way underneath this video, and I'll try to answer anything that sounds like in the tune that's confusing, or there's a point that you're not sure about. We'll go through it again, and I'll do a separate video perhaps to answer the question, or I'll just type something out for you. Okay? So there you go. Hope you enjoy the chart, and If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe the channel, and we will see you on the next video. Take care.